Well, I'm going to give a little bit of market advice that's a little different from other people. I know, like the physical silver crowd likes to say, just buy coins. It's not a bad idea. I'm not knocking it, but like I say, diversify. Just don't buy silver. Buy gold, platinum, and palladium also. But actually, a major proponent of platinum and palladium too, especially palladium. I think palladium at one point in time is going to be worth more than gold, so it's a stellar investment if you can hang on long enough. But in the meantime, I always like displaying bicycles and motorcycles. I see them as very practical transportation and a way you can cut cost, especially the bicycle. A lot of people are turned off by the motorcycle because they're more dangerous and that type of stuff. But for a very inexpensive investment, the prices vary, but you got to get something fairly good quality. You could save a few dollars on that just using it casually, but it's a great emergency transportation backup for a real emergency, like if there's a major problem. Bicycles always comes in handy. You don't need fuel and that type of stuff. But I want to point out some other things about the markets in general. Silver's sitting pretty flat. It's around the $30 mark. I know it's going a little bit below 30, but maybe it's going to be holding at that level. Who knows? But I don't want to mention too many names because I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, but I think it was Greg Manarino was telling people, if I got this correct, maybe I got it wrong before what he said, but I think he says that he's telling people more or less to short the markets. I would pretty much agree with that, but that the markets are going to go down, but that would not be my strategy to do that. I think if you're going to invest money, there's other things you should invest money in rather than trying to bet on shorting the markets. Actually, Warren Buffett has been talking about shorting the markets for the last 4 months. Like more than 4 months, actually. And they're predicting market downturn since like August. And so far, it really hasn't happened yet. But when we go over the fiscal cliff and there's partisan bickering back and forth, just like in August of 2011, I think the markets will go down. So I know Greg Manarino is saying that type of stuff, and it's not really, I don't really think it's wrong or anything like that, but that's not what I would do. I would invest, if you're going to actually invest in any more metals and you already have silver, if you don't have palladium and you already got a good amount of silver, even though palladium has been moving up a lot since the summer, I would invest in palladium for a long haul hold, okay? Because eventually palladium is going to be worth more than gold. But don't invest in physical palladium if you think you're going to be dumping it 6 months from now. I mean, that still might turn out to be a very good bet, but I would say this is going to be a hold for a few years or more, okay? But at this price, it's cheap, okay? That's one thing I want to point out there. Now, also with people that are investing in physical metals, they're more or less survivalist, okay? Now, survivalist, I just want to point out, I know the bicycles are one thing. You could skip the high heels, but but as far as survivalist, I always hear this garbage about the bug-out bag. I got to take off and go somewhere. I think that's a fallacy to the max. Think about staying put. Think about, food and energy and that type of stuff. Don't think about bugging out because to me, that's insane. Unless it's unless the earth you have an earthquake in the area, a tornado, or something catastrophic that's going to happen that you have to bug out. But normally, you just wouldn't do that. That's a bad strategy. The other thing to watch out for is there's going to be people that are your friends and there's going to be people that are your enemies. So it's almost like, that's a tough situation because you can actually think of everything, but humans can screw you up. And it can help you and it can screw you up. And that's going to be a tough decision, who to keep close and who not to keep close. Me, personally, I don't like telling people anything, to tell you the truth, because I don't trust nobody. I'm totally on a self-reliant mode. That's basically the way I think. But, that's probably a wronger way to think, but I'm extremely independent. I don't buy into sharing information with anybody or any kind of crap. That's the way I am. Now, I'm going to point out something else that I think if you have money that you want to short the market, I know Greg Manarino talked about that, but you know what I would do? Besides putting it down on Palladium for a long haul, like provided you already have a good amount of silver coins, I would invest in reloading equipment for guns, ammunition, and high-capacity magazines. That will actually turn over more of a profit than, I think, shorting stocks. It may not be as easy to do, but it's solid physical assets. And actually, in the case of reloading equipment and actually things like primers and, various types of, I'm talking that strictly for an investment, but learn how to use them. I know how to use this stuff. I have various reloading equipment, weights, scales, vernier calibers, and I know how to use it. I have the books, and I've reloaded thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Actually, that can actually produce money very slowly, but in times where these things say there's a real emergency, like you're a real prepper, I think bullets will be more tradable than silver coins. So this is partly an investment update, but partly a survivalist update. So, and again, the bicycle is one of your most practical things you can possibly have for transportation. I know there's a lot of people out there, especially like the males, that might be thinking they're going to have this four-wheel drive vehicle and they're going to bug out. Don't even bother with bugging out. Don't even bother with bugging out. Actually, you're better off bugging in, basically staying put, that type of stuff. So this is basically an update on a combination of survival and investing. Now, I'm going to point something else out. This is an article from the I shouldn't laugh, but it was actually from the Telegraph recently. You can read it. But basically, Indian workers burned boss and wife to death this is in India, right? And it was because these workers were being treated so harshly by this employer that they basically burned the home that they were in with them in it, believe it or not. And they dared the police to arrest them because they thought they thought those people were that bad. And it's an interesting story because it actually goes back to ancient times. If you look back at the Romans and what happened with emperors and various emperors, how many of those met violent deaths? How many generals met violent deaths from revolts by their own troops? It happened many times. And, you could say, this is always the big fear and always the big thing about, you see in the alternative media, the elite are doing this, the elite are doing that. But, the elite often miscalculate. And, I'm going to tell you this. This might be an unpopular statement on YouTube. I basically support the elite. I don't see any problem with people having, that worked like a mad dog and were very shrewd and got lucky too. Besides, they have a lot. I don't necessarily have anything against the elite. The only thing I have against the elite is when they try to take away my rights. We have the Bill of Rights in America, and we have certain rights, and they're inviolate. You don't violate those rights. So when the elite try to take away those rights, I consider them, they're enemies. They're enemies. But, if you look back to Roman times, and if you look back even recently right here with this article in India, when the elite put the screws down too hard, unexpected consequences happen. A word that Mark Farber alludes to, unexpected consequences when you try to manipulate markets. But also when you try to put the screws down to people too much, unexpected consequences happen too much. And it's happened to the best of the best. The backlash was so severe that the elite themselves got destroyed. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm not against the elite. I'm not. And that's the other thing, A lot of times I would, actually if I had the opportunity to talk to, say, a Rothschild who's supposedly like this big evil person, and maybe they are, I'd be asking them about how the hell we can get methods of industrial hemp growing in the United States. I wouldn't be like trying to, cut the guy's throat right away or some kind of garbage. Even if they got like 2% of all the profits in the globe and allowed Americans to grow industrial hemp. That'd be the way to work it out. Let them get richer. The hell with it, as long as we get richer too. That's the way I look at it. Work together, not against them. But when they take away your rights, you could say that's cruel and unusual punishment, and punish them back accordingly. That's my method on it, because basically they're just being like a Nazi or a communist all the way. And you know what those people are. They're all about genocide and Holocaust. And if you look at an organization called the JFPO, Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, which I was aware of since it actually inception started. Genocide is the real thing you got to watch out for. So it's so monumental that most people just ignore it because it's too big. It's too big to think about. But if you want to invest for the future, I think some of the best things to invest in right now with the current climate that's going on is probably reloading equipment, high-capacity magazines, and various things that you would use with the weapons besides the magazines, like the pouches and things that possibly might go up in value quite a bit because you're going to try to put restrictive laws on in place. But the reloading equipment might be a very, very smart type of thing to do, because actually it's a physical investment that can actually produce something that may go up in value a lot, which I'm talking about is loaded ammunition. Loaded ammunition might get expensive. I'm not sure about this, but if I was to bet money versus what, say, I'm not trying to knock this guy, say Greg Manarino says to short the markets. I think he said to short the markets. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not misquoting him. But I'm not saying that's a bad bet, and because I think the market's going to go down. But just remember, Warren Buffett's been talking about the markets going down for the last 4 months, and haven't quite yet. Maybe it'll might take another 3-4 months. I don't know how long people want to hold that short position. But what I would do, I would get physical assets. Instead of investing that type of money, I would get physical assets in reloading equipment. Now, me, I'm loaded down with reloading equipment. I can reload all kinds of calibers, and I know all kinds of crap about this stuff. And but that would be a much smarter investment than playing around. I don't want to call it playing around, but going into the brokerage accounts. Actually, I'm thinking that if there's a war with Iran, which I think there's going to be, it's going to be. After all this stuff settles down with the markets, the fiscal cliff and all this type of stuff, it's probably going to be a hit on Iran. I'm going to call it a hit, and that's going to drive your metals up very high sometime when that happens. And I'm thinking, it's been going on for years, but I think there is going to be a point when it's going to happen, and it's maybe, it might be this spring. It's a guess. That's the only thing I could say. It's a guess. But if that happens, the metals might get ahead of themselves, and I will sell off brokerage accounts and just stay with paper fiat cash until I consider, I think we're going into the catastrophic area after that. It might take a few years, though. It might not happen as quick as like the doomsdayers say, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's going to be some crazy shit happening in the United States. So versus like trying to short the market, I would invest in, say, bicycle. I'd invest in palladium. That would be a long haul investment. I'd invest in any of the types of weapons or any of the types of magazines that you suspect might be getting banned in the future, if they get lucky and that happens, and invest in reloading equipment. So that would be my financial advice, for real. Stay physical all the way, physical. I think the wealthy are probably going to get caught in a trap in a lot of ways, because only the really super wealthy are going to be able to escape, and actually the wealthy that maybe the average person might consider them wealthy, which are like more the upper class, they're going to get fleeced. I'm not trusting stuff on paper either. That's my attitude. I think Lindsey Williams is basically correct on that, but I don't trust him at all. But I don't trust what's on paper either. I would go with any kinds of physical assets.